As I look outside, I'm reminded of the small details that often go unnoticed, like the shapes of the leaves, the texture of the bark, the flutter of wings in the distance. Today, we're bringing that same sense of wonder into our journals by creating handmade specimen slides that capture those fleeting, beautiful moments. Today, we're not going to need any templates or cutting dies. Instead, we're going to use simple materials like vintage book pages, prints, and even wax paper to craft unique, nostalgic pieces that serve as pockets for our memories. Join me as we blend the art of journaling with the beauty of nature, preserving life's little wonders one slide at a time. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I don't sing high praises for Dollar Tree's paper packs. These are so great. They have so much texture and interest, and they're small pieces that can be used in so many ways. I'm going to show you this technique using the Dollar Tree paper as well as some cardstock in case you can't get your hands on it. But the technique works with any paper that you want, any type of texture. That's what's so wonderful about it is we are making our own templates without having to rely on other outside supplies. These little variations of paper remind us that no two moments are exactly the same. Each has its own story and character. The technique is going to be exactly the same no matter what shape your paper is or size it is. We're going to fold it in half first, and I'm going to show you 3 different variations on this and how you can make it simple to the absolute simplest. Since our slides do have little notches clipped out at the tops, I'm going to measure down about 1/2 of an inch so that I can make sure that my notches match up. I'm also going to measure in about 1/4 of an inch on both sides so those sides also match up. I do have to add a little disclaimer here, or a side note. The box cutter that I'm using, or X-Acto knife that I'm using, the blade is dull. Well, it's not really dull. I use it for things I shouldn't use it for. So it has like a little nick out of it. So when I was trying to cut this paper, because it's more delicate in nature, it was snagging. And so I did pause the video to try to take off one of the little blades. If that's something that you'd be interested in learning how to do, because I had to look it up. I had no idea how to change it, and I didn't have anyone around to ask. So if you want to know how to do it, I will definitely do a little short or a video showing you how to do it, because it's super easy, but it can be intimidating. Once my notches are completely cut out, I'm going to take my scissors and just round every single corner edge. I'm going to take a piece of scrap cardstock, and I'm going to make a template that I'll be able to trace on my slide to then cut out my windows. Creating gives you the chance to play, explore, and see the world through a different lens, one that's filled with imagination and wonder. So today, instead of worrying so much about the techniques, I want you to focus on playing and enjoying. If you use the same method as I'm doing for the windows, then you have two options. You can, instead of using a marker like I did, unless you need it to be able to see the lines more clearly, Then you can use a pencil and erase your lines when you're done, or you can do what I did and I folded it to the other side so that no one will ever know those lines existed. On my next slide, instead of measuring down the 1/4 inch, I'm just going to lay my ruler down and kind of guesstimate where I want the lines or the notches to end. So I am going to lightly mark out those lines, and then instead of measuring anything else out, I'm just going to start snipping. Now, a little tip for this is to make all of your vertical snips at once. It will help you to get them to line up a little better. We'll proceed by rounding the corners just like we did for our first slide. On this slide, I decided to go ahead and just sketch out a kind of rectangular shape that I think would look nice as a window. I'm going to then use the lines on my cutting mat to make sure that my lines are straight when I'm cutting it out using my X-Acto knife. Today, I wanted to give you a word of encouragement in case you have not been told already. Don't forget that you are deeply loved and chosen by God. You are not alone, and your worth is immeasurable. On the very last slide, I wanted to show you that Not only do you not need any templates, any dies, but you also don't even need to measure anything out. On this one, I'm going in and I'm starting off by snipping off my vertical edges for my little notches. And this time, instead of using a template or using measurements for my window, we are just going to sketch out a window. The way that I like to cut these out is to bend the piece kind of in half so that I can get my scissors through the center, and then I can go into one of the sides and start cutting around the corners. A good tip here is to grab some kind of binder clip or even a paper clip that can hold your paper together so that it doesn't move on you. And whether you end up using the first technique, the second, or the third technique, I want to tell you that they all came out beautiful. And I think, as I've always said, there is so much beauty in the imperfections. Even now, when I'm looking back on this video and I see the little notches where I had the issue with my knife not cutting through, it gives it so much personality and tells another story. I definitely encourage you to drop the perfectionism at the wayside and create something with mistakes, with imperfections. It just is going to add so much character and tell such a deep story of your piece. And then also, it's an extension of you, of what you made with your hands. And I think that is priceless. For me, this is where the magic truly happens in the decorating process. It's watching the transformation of the paper and taking a piece of cardstock that is brand new and making it look aged and well loved. It feels like it's full of history and of stories, even though I just pulled it out of the paper pack. Each swipe of distress stain ink adds depth and character, making every slide uniquely beautiful. And it's a reminder that sometimes the imperfections and worn edges are what makes something truly special, just like the moments that we capture within our journals. To give it a more realistic aged look, I usually like to layer two colors, a lighter one, and then I go in with a darker one specifically around the edges because this is how real paper would wear over time. This step is such a relaxing part of the process. There's something meditative about blending the inks together and watching the colors transform the paper as you work around the edges. To create a translucent effect, I'm going to add some wax paper to the slide. It's like it's a window into another world. The thing about using a wax paper is that it adds a depth of an aged paper that has seen a lot of things, has held on to a lot of memories. And although it is a bit opaque, you can still see through it. And I find that to be so lovely. And now that our specimen slides are ready, I'm going to attach them to my journals as pockets. I love how the sides are open so that you can tuck in your very own little keepsakes. You can add in some pressed flowers, a tiny sketch, or even a note from a loved one. Just like the world outside, our journals are filled with small wonders that make life so beautiful. These specimen slides remind us to pause and capture those fleeting moments, preserving them as keepsakes in our souls. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that this has inspired you to create your own little windows of wonder. And if you enjoyed this video, it would mean so very much to me if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. All of your support allows me to continue creating content that inspires us to find beauty in the little things around us. A big thank you as you continue to watch the end result. And I just, again, thank you for spending the time with me when you could be doing so many other things. Until next time, love you. Bye.